So, Tony, you spoke at the World Development Movement's event here in Ghana yesterday, and at that meeting you were talking about the impact of free trade agreements on something we're hearing about a lot in the UK, which is the global food crisis. And I wondered if you could explain that.
What is happening now in Asia, for example, the food riots in Indonesia, I mean, not really a riot, but it's big demonstrations on the increase of the price of soybeans that resulted in the increase of price of tempeh, which is a basic Indonesian food. Everyone eats tempeh. In the same way that suddenly in the Philippines you have this spiking up of the price of rice. For us, it's not a simple issue of monopolies, but can be traced to neoliberal policies and is in fact the result of the policies of globalization that has been implemented in our countries. In the Philippines, for example, when we had severe rice crisis in 1974, this was due principally to bad harvest as well as bad food management. The government then of the dictator Marcos set up the National Food Authority, which was mandated to, number one, prevent monopolies from controlling the price of rice by having this government parastatal buy rice at support prices. So on one hand, they supported the price, there was a price support mechanism for the farmers. It was not very good, but at least it was a price support mechanism. And then on the other hand, they were able to control 40% of rice stocks, which prevented the monopolies from, manipulating the prices. Since then, these monopolies remain. They manipulate the price of what is called commercial rice, which means to say rice that are of a higher quality are much more expensive and are controlled by, the market is controlled by 8 companies, Filipino, Chinese companies, who are known as the 8 Sisters, and they manipulate the prices between them. But the government is able to prevent extreme, manipulations by that control. However, with globalization, the Philippine government implemented a number of policies. First policy was they consciously reduced the acreage planted to rice, with the claim that number one, the Philippines doesn't need to be self-sufficient in rice. Under globalization, you can just import it. And then number two, you can convert your crops to high-value crops. It means to say farmers earn more by planting asparagus and so on. Now, this eventually led to a situation where actually the Asian Development Bank implemented conditionality, attached conditionality to a Philippine loan for the Food Authority. The Food Authority didn't have enough money, and NFA said, we will give you a loan on the condition that you reduce the price support system dramatically, which means to say 5 years ago they stopped buying rice from the farmers. This left the farmers to the mercy of the cartel, because then the farm gate price would go down to the level of production costs. The farmers had no choice but to sell at that rate and lose. And so there were lots of bankruptcies, and this pushed farmers to convert to other crops even more, such that the Philippines started importing rice in 1995. When I mean, it's just coincidental, but what a wonderful coincidence that for a country which was one of the major rice exporters before, suddenly starts importing rice when it acceded to the WTO. And actually by 2 years ago, the Philippines became the #1 importer of rice in the world. Why? Simple. The Asian Development Bank didn't want the Philippines to be buying its rice from the farmers, which were now selling the rice to the commercial traders. The government was now importing rice from Vietnam because the landed cost of milled Vietnamese rice is equivalent to 9 pesos, which happens to be the support price Which means to say, for the NFA, if they are able to come in with a mill of rice at the same price or lower than the price they were buying it before, then they will make a profit. And so the NFA was now announcing that it was making, the first year it profited 50 million pesos, the next year it profited 100 million pesos. And the ADB and everyone was so happy that here was this parastatal meant to ensure rice stocks, meant to support the farmers, now reporting profits. But the end is, the Philippines lost its self-reliance. For us, the lesson is very clear. One, globalization removed our self-reliance in rice. Number two, globalization destroyed the rice farmers. Number three, globalization gave control to the monopolies, both in the Philippines as well as the competition from countries who are supplying rice, and the United States, which subsidizes rice production in the desert in California, now will be suddenly have an upsurge in its exports to the Philippines, and that's a good one.